for example.
Yes.
At least good presidents. Signatures by world leaders. That's always in demand.
One of my favorite signed books was by the Bouvier sisters, Jacqueline and her sister Lee Bouvier. They did a limited edition of One Special Summer when the two sisters went to Europe, and it's a beautiful book. They drew pictures in it, and of course, Jacqueline Bouvier went on to become Mrs. Kennedy and the widow of the president. So that's a great, iconic piece of American history, cultural history, pop culture. Is it a significant book in and of itself? Not really. It's about two young ladies bopping around the continent and eating escargot and sipping champagne. But because of who she was, it's desirable.
Right. Now, on contrary to that, there are books signed by, let's say, ephemeral people. Lorena Bobbitt, for example. If you had Lorena Bobbitt's autobiography signed by her, half the audience probably doesn't remember who she is.
Is it signed in red?
Exactly. but at the time, boy, everybody knew her name.
Right.
So we get calls, I have a bunch of signed books. They're signed by local TV personalities.
No, thanks.
No, that's not going to cut it.
And there may be that person out there who's, I want the book signed by Mr. Jingling or Crazy Eddie, who sold cars in New Jersey for 40 years, but those aren't our kind of books, and we tend to shy away from them. Now, what about books of cultural significance? Yeah,
I think cultural significance, maybe like To Kill a Mockingbird. Would that be something?
Oh, absolutely. It bore tremors in the literary landscape when it was issued.
Yeah, because of its subject matter and what was happening in the country at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. When did that come out? Early 50s?
I think 1954.
Yeah, and in the middle, that's really the beginning of the hardcore civil rights.
That's right.
Push.
Yeah.
So that has massive cultural. To this day, that's a very important book.
Now, it's been often reprinted. The first printing is the one you want to get.
Yeah.
It's got to say first printing on the back of the title page. If it doesn't say first printing, it's not a first printing, and it's probably one of the next 3 million copies that were rolled off the press.
Right.
Typically, I believe that, I don't know this for a fact, but I think the first printing of that book was somewhere between 20 and 50,000 copies.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an instant hit, and then Harper and Row just started punching them out by the scads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably
great
unlike
movie, by the way.
Not unlike the maybe a Catcher in the Rye, same story.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
Sort of on the edge of pre-beatnikism,
Yes.
Again, cultural significance there.
Right.
Or On the Road, which is pure beat, and the first big beat. The beat culture introduced to the public.
Exactly.
That's always going to be in demand. Both reprints can be good, but the firsts are going to be astronomical.
Or at least make one feel good about it.
Yeah. Then there's geographical significance.
Geographical.
For example, where a book was published. Now, this is mostly for older books. For example, if a book was published in New York in some little town in New York in 1753 or something like that.
Right. Well, that brings to mind Thomas Paine's Common Sense for the American People. That was published in numerous places, Philadelphia, Boston. We have a copy published Norwich, Connecticut in 1776 in the heart of the American Revolution. How many printing presses were in Norwich, Connecticut in 1776? Probably not that many.
Right.
Of course, the first book published in the colonies is the Bay Psalm book. I don't have the date on hand right now, but it wasn't an explosion of printing presses like it was after Gutenberg in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
they did what they could.
Right.
So our copy of the Norwich imprint is scarce. It's important, and somebody from Norwich, or a library, or a think tank, or some important library should want that to preserve it and cherish the heritage that it embodies.
Absolutely. Somebody, if anybody out there in Connecticut is listening to this, find a home for it in Connecticut. Call us up, and we'd be happy to place it somewhere in Connecticut where it belongs.
Hand
really,
deliver it. You could look at it at zubelbooks.com. Pictures are up, and it's intensively described.
Yeah. So actually, that work, the Thomas Paine work, covers both geographical significance and cultural significance, and historicals. It covers it all.
Absolutely.
That's a truly rare work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he's loved by the folks of the French Revolution. He's loved by the anti-royalists in Great Britain. Thomas Paine will always be revered. He's actually loved by revolutionists throughout the eons, throughout the ages.
Yeah. Good stuff. Anything else you want to say about the values of books?
Well, here's one main point is that scarcity has to do with physicality. So if a book wasn't popular when it's issued, and it's found to be important 5 years or 10 years later, more times than not, the publisher didn't print very many copies. So it's sort of the tail wags the dog.
Right.
Is a book ever issued that this is tomorrow a scarce and valuable book? Never. I don't believe ever. There are books that are created in fine bindings, in strict limitations, 75 copies, printed on gold leaf, et cetera, signed by God and his band of angels, that sort of thing. But those are sort of built-in value pieces rather than things that grow into important and valuable and scarce items.
Right. And that leads me to think about the big collection we just talked about and the Alcoholics Anonymous books. The first book, the red book, and then
the big book.
the big book, but it first came out in red, a red binding, and then it started in the blue binding.
The red paperback?
No.
The red dust jacket?
No, I think the
Red binding?
Yeah, the woman had it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
the first printing.
So you just don't know about.
I've never seen one.
So when they made these books, I mean, who knew that Alcoholics Anonymous was going to catch on and spread like wildfire? So now every edition of that book has tens of printings.
Oh, absolutely.
But the first
Thousands
edition, which by the way also has probably tens of printings, the first edition, but the first edition first printing. Maybe, what did he make? I don't know. I can't even venture to guess.
It was in Akron, Ohio, and they were distributing them by hand.
Yeah, so if you come up with one of those, you have a good book.
You weren't able to go on a website and buy that in 1948.
Oh, you couldn't. It must have been. Yeah, it's hard to even conceive. Think about it.
Absolutely. So hopefully one of those is in that morass from our.
Yeah, that would be
big
cool.
Hall.
Yeah.
Cool. We're about to wrap up episode 11 of Book Brothers. I'm Michael Zubel.
I'm Tom Zubel.
And if you think you have a rare book or a valuable book, reach out to us, info@zubel.com.
Yeah, we are always happy to hear from people. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to read your question at our next podcast and answer it.
That's a great idea.
And if you think you have a great book, or if you know somebody has a good book collection that's they're ready to move on it, you can always reach out to us, and we're very accessible.
We're right here in Cleveland, Ohio, and we're looking forward to a brief winter and a nice warm spring.
That's right. So until next time, don't buy from bookjackers.
Try to read good books and enjoy them. And
you're supposed to say when you think books.
Oh, think books, think Zubel.
There you go. Now we got it. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Book Brothers is copyrighted by Zubel Books and recorded at Electric Zubelland Studios in glorious Brecksville, Ohio. All music appearing on Book Brothers is performed by the Slap Jazz Quartet.